Assalamualaikum. Today we are going to continue our lesson to the new topics. Unit 5, Complex Numbers. Complex number have 4 subtopics. 5.1 Imaginary numbers, 5.2 Complex number in rectangular form and Argand diagram, 5.3 Complex number in polar form, 5.4 De Moivre's theorem. Unit 5, Complex numbers. Okay, let's look today's lesson on the first subtopic, 5.1 Imaginary numbers. Learning outcome: at the end of this lesson, you should be able to write the square root of negative numbers in terms of I. And the second one, you have to know how to simplify powers of I. Okay, let's look introduction of imaginary numbers. Complex numbers is combination of real numbers and imaginary numbers. Okay, this is example of complex number. A plus bi. A and B is any numbers. So, example 7 plus 3i. This is example of complex number. 7 is the real numbers. 3i is the imaginary numbers. And then it becomes complex number. Complex does not mean complicated. It means the two types of numbers, which is real and imaginary, together from a complex. Just like building complex, building join together. Okay, complex numbers ni kombinasi dua nombor nyata dan nombor imaginary. Macam bangunan, kita tengok bangunan kompleks bangunan ialah bangunan yang mengandungi beberapa kedai di dalamnya. That is complex. Okay, let's look deep on imaginary number. 5.1.1 Introduction of imaginary numbers. An imaginary number is a number that can be written as real number multiplied by the imaginary unit I. Imaginary unit I is equal to square root of negative 1. I adalah simbol untuk imaginary unit dan nilai dia adalah punca kuasa 2 negatif 1. Okay, kita tengok dengan lebih detail lagi. I bila dikuasa 2 kan menjadi I kuasa 2, iaitu I darab dengan I, iaitu punca kuasa negatif 1 darab dengan punca kuasa negatif 1. Punca kuasa negatif 1 darab dengan punca negatif 1 sama dengan punca kuasa negatif 1 kuasa 2. So, bila kita ada punca kuasa ni, kita boleh cancelkan bahagian punca kuasa dengan kuasa, maka nilainya akan menjadi negatif 1. So, I kuasa 2 sama dengan negatif 1. This is the next concept yang you all perlu remember. You have to remember. Okay, next we have a general formula to write a number in imaginary unit. We have square root of negative A. We separate the A and the negative. So, we have square root of A multiplied by negative 1. And then square root of A multiply by square root of negative 1. Pisahkan punca kuasanya, maka punca kuasa A darab dengan punca kuasa negatif 1 adalah I. Jawapan akhir dia punca kuasa A, I. Okay, let's look the next slide. Before that, I want to remind you, you have to remember the concept I equal to square root of negative 1 and I squared equal to negative 1. And this is how to write the general number in imaginary form. Okay. Example, simplifying square roots to imaginary numbers. So here I bring the two important things that you should remember. I and I squared. Okay, let's look example. The first one, we have square root of negative 3. Kita ada punca kuasa negatif 3. And we want to write in imaginary numbers. Separate, pisahkan 3 dengan negatif 1, 3 darab negatif 1. Kemudian pisahkan punca kuasa. Maka punca kuasa 3 darab punca kuasa negatif 1 ialah punca kuasa 3i. Kerana punca kuasa negatif 1 adalah equals to I. Next, punca kuasa negatif 5. Again, we separate the 5 and the negative. 5 multiplied by negative 1. Square root of 5 multiplied by square root of negative 1. And you get the answer, square root of 5i. This is imaginary numbers. Okay. Example 5.1. We have square root of negative 4. Separate negative 4 and separate 4 and negative 1. You get 4 multiplied by negative 1. Separate the square root. Put square root of 4 multiply square root of negative 1. And then square root of 4 we can find the value as a whole number, which is 2. And then this one is I. So the final answer is 2i. Okay, kalau jawapan dia kita dapat dengan nombor bulat, kita tukar dapat ringkaskan sekali terus kepada nombor bulat. Kalau macam ni, punca kuasa 3, punca kuasa 5, kita tak dapat nombor bulat, kita akan dapat nombor perpuluhan, maka kita biarkan sahaja dia dalam bentuk square root. Okay, kalau dalam punca kuasa perpuluhan ni kita berdapat nombor bulat, kita kena simplifykan dia. Contoh yang seterusnya pun sama. Kita ada negative at the outside the square root, and inside we have square root of negative 16. We separate the 16 and negative 1. You get negative square root of 16 multiplied by square root of negative 1. And then square root of 16 kita boleh ringkaskan menjadi 4. So depannya ada negative, so negative 4. Square root of negative 1, we replace it as I. So the final answer is negative 4i. Okay, let's try this question. What is your answer? Yes, for the first one, A, you will get 3i. And the second one, you will get negative 5i. Very good. Okay, let's look the next concept. Simplifying imaginary numbers. Okay, we know how to write imaginary numbers, and now we want to simplify imaginary numbers. Power of I. I is equal to square root of negative 1. I squared equal to negative 1. This concept we have learned in the previous slide. And then we want to look to I to the power of 3. I to the power of 3 is I to the power of 2 multiplied by I. So negative 1 darab dengan square root of negative 1. So kita simplifikan, jawapan akhir dapat negatif punca kuasa negatif 1. Okay, I kuasa 4 pula ialah I kuasa 2 darab dengan I kuasa 2. I kuasa 2 adalah negatif 1 darab dengan I kuasa 2 negatif 1. So negatif darab negatif akan dapat positif 1. This is the concept of power of I. If we continue to I to the power of 5, kita akan dapat I kuasa 4 darab I. I kuasa 4 adalah 1 dan I kuasa I ialah square root of negative 1. So dia akan berulang balik pada jawapan yang pertama. So the power of I ni dia akan berulang 4 jawapan ini setiap kali dibuat. Maka kita ada cycle sampai I kuasa 4 sahaja. Okay. Seterusnya, tips to simplify using calculator. In your books, using bahagi manually. So I like to use calculator, but because everyone suka guna calculator, right? Okay, tips to simplify using calculator. Okay. First, you have to press power of I, divide by 4 and you get the answer. So power of I ni kita nak gunakan using calculator to simplify the power of imaginary number. So power ni kita letak dekat sini, dan bila kita dapat jawapan tu akan dapat 4 kemungkinan jawapan. Sama ada 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, 0.00. Yang depan ni depends pada number lah. Okay, so tapi kita akan dapat perpuluhan, ada 4 jenis perpuluhan di sini. So kalau dapat 0.25, that power of the number power of I equal to I kuasa 1. Kalau 0.50 equal to I squared, 0.75 equal to I cube, 0.00 equal to I to the power of 4. Okay, let's look at example to help you understand. Example 5.2. We have I to the power of 9. We want to simplify the imaginary numbers. It takes the power of I is 9. 9 divided by 4, you get 2.25. See, look at the back. Perpuluhan dia ialah 0.25. 0.25 equal to I. So, I kuasa 9 ini sama dengan I. That is called simplifying imaginary number. Boleh faham? Kita tengok contoh yang seterusnya. We have here I to the power of 22. We want to simplify this imaginary number. Take the power of imaginary. 22 divided by 4. You get the answer in your calculator 5.5. So 0.5. 0.5 is equal to I squared. So the answer is I to the power of 22 equal to I squared. Boleh faham? Okay, next. I kuasa 27. Kita dapat I kuasa 3. Bagaimana? Tekan kalkulator, 27 bahagi dengan 4. Dan anda akan dapat 0.75. So, 0.75 ialah I kuasa 3. Next. Cuba yang lain. Boleh cuba I kuasa 104. Berapakah jawapannya? Ya, awak akan dapat 26.00. Tidak ada perpuluhan. Maka ia adalah equals to I kuasa 4. Okay. Boleh faham? This is how we simplify imaginary number. Okay, next. Let's look how to evaluate imaginary numbers. Okay, evaluate imaginary is quite same with before this. Simplify. So, sekali ni kita akan melibatkan value. Evaluate ni maksudnya mencari nilai. So, kita akan libatkan cari nilai. Okay. Tip simplify using power ni kita akan terus gunakan. Sama seperti sebelum ni. Cuma kita ada step tambahan. Memasukkan nilai I kuasa 1, I kuasa 2, I kuasa 3, I kuasa 4 di jawapan akhir kita. Okay, let's look example 5.3. I have I to power 103. Daripada sini kita tekan calculator. 103 divided by 4 equal to 25.75. 0.75 equal to I to the power of 3. So, I to the power of 103. I kuasa 103 ni sama dengan I kuasa 3. Dan kita tengok dekat I kuasa 3, jawapan dia adalah negative square root of negative 1. So, gantikanlah dekat sini. Okay, nilai dia ni. So, this one you have to remember tu lah. Okay, normally tak susah nak ingat. Kalau kuasa 1, punca kuasa negatif 1. Kuasa 2, negatif 1. Kuasa 3, darabkan. Akan dapat negatif, punca kuasa negatif 1. Kuasa 4 ialah negatif 1. Darab negatif 1 dapat 1. Okay, kita tengok contoh kedua. I kuasa 28. Gunakan kalkulator. 28 bagi 4 dapat 7.00. Iaitu tak ada perpuluhan belakang. Ia adalah sama dengan I kuasa 4. I kuasa 4, nilai dia adalah 1. So, ini je cari nilai. Ini yang dimaksudkan dengan cari nilai. Kita simplify and then kita continue with the next step. Evaluate the value. Okay, let's try this. I want you to try. I to the power of 46. What is the value? Ni akan dapat kalkulator perpuluhan 5 dan akan dapat I kuasa 2. Dan I kuasa 2 ialah negatif 1. Next question. I to the power of 81. 81 divided by 4, you get 20.25. So 20.25 adalah equal to I. and I is equal to square root of negative 1. Okay, saya harap semua boleh faham. Seterusnya, kita just nak kukuhkan kefahaman kita untuk imaginary number and real number. What is the difference? Okay, tick which of the following is the imaginary numbers. Okay, 20i. When we have I here, that is imaginary number. Square root of negative 81. Punca kuasa yang melibatkan nombor negatif. Yes, that is imaginary number. Negative 2. No, that is real number. 40. Real number. Negative 8. Real number. Square root of negative 81. Yes, this is imaginary number. Negative 13i. Yes, imaginary number. We have I here, right? Negative 5i. Yes, imaginary number. Okay, boleh faham? Okay, kita kukuhkan, kita tahu yang apakah imaginary number dan yang manakah real number. Seterusnya, try this. I want you all to try. Is it true real number or imaginary number? Yes, real number, so not imaginary. This one is imaginary number, B. This is imaginary number, 16. Square root of 60, no. Negative 6, no. 3, no. Square root of 1 over 2, no. Square root of negative 1 over is imaginary number. 56, no. Negative 13i, yes. 5i, yes. Ada I ataupun ada square root of negative 1 is imaginary number. So this is answer B, G, I, G. Okay. I hope everyone understand the concept of imaginary numbers. Next, you may do exercise tutorial 5.1 to enhance your understanding. Thank you.